episode 178 of the Outdoor Biz Podcast with journalist, world traveler, and adventurer Shelby Stanger. I believe achieving success in the outdoor biz is dependent upon embracing the outdoor lifestyle and learning from outdoor leaders that came before you. If you agree, then listen up for tips, advice, and hacks about growing or starting your career in the outdoor biz. My name is Rick Sayes. Welcome to the Outdoor Biz Podcast. On this episode, Shelby Stanger tells us how she got into journalism, her outdoor experience with brands like Vans, and a whole lot more. But first, if you want to grow your outdoor adventure business with a podcast, I've created a proven 10-step guide that will show you how to increase sales, educate customers, boost authority, and publish a podcast. From choosing your podcast style and content ideas to publishing your episodes, it has everything you need to know about growing your business with a podcast. Head over to outdoorbizpodcastacademy.com/grow and download this free resource today. That's outdoorbizpodcastacademy.com/grow. Hey, Shelby, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Rick. It's exciting to meet someone so like-minded.
Yeah, it's good to talk with another podcaster, and you would use a lot of the same equipment and have some of this. You're more of a journalist. I'm more of a sales guy and marketing guy in the outdoor biz. But
well, actually, my background
paths.
is completely in the outdoor and action sports business in marketing and
Okay.
sales, as well
Nice.
as journalist. So pretty similar.
Yeah, pretty similar. Yeah. It's been a great industry to be in. I don't know how you feel about it, but man, I wouldn't change a thing. It's been fabulous.
Yeah, I almost went into like the packaging industry, and then a light bulb went off, and I was like, "What am I doing?"
How are you going to go into packaging?
I just wanted to make money. I was like, "What am I doing?" I just wanted to make money, and someone convinced me that the packaging industry was where it's at. They offered me a job, and I was like, so close to going down that road, and then I don't know what happened. Maybe I got hit my head on the surfboard. By my surfboard, and I realized, okay, no, that's not the direction. And then I started my podcast. I was like,
nice.
I'm going all in.
So what was your first exposure to the outdoors? How'd you get excited about the outdoor stuff?
Well, I'm really lucky. I grew up in San Diego, and I grew up surfing. So my first experience in the outdoors was really through the water.
Mm-hmm.
And every summer, my mom sent me to this amazing summer camp called Mission Bay Aquatic Center. And my father had passed away suddenly when I was 11. And so after that, my mom was, a single mom. She taught at San Diego State, and this camp was discounted if you were an employee of San Diego State. It's this incredible camp. And in the morning, you sail, you water ski, you kayak, or you surf. And then in the afternoon, you do all those activities. So I was really lucky.
Very cool.
Grew up around the water, and for me, surfing, I always played soccer. And then I loved surfing. And I think in the water, it was a place where I figured out a lot of answers I could never figure out in land. And it was also just really fun. And there's nothing like surfing that builds confidence for a young girl. And I also liked that I was one of the only girls, because I was just boy crazy since I was 11. And it's really exciting now that so many women and young women are surfing
it's amazing.
now.
Oh, it's amazing.
But back then, I really didn't mind the odds either. So there you go.
I'll bet. Did you go to sixth grade camp down there?
I did. I went to a sixth grade camp in Cuyamaca, or I think so.
I taught at Palomar for 4 years.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I grew up in Cardiff, and then we moved to Bird Rock in La Jolla when I was 13. I was pretty lucky in terms of locations.
Very lucky. Jeez. And to be into surfing, it's right there.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my parents sold both the houses, but I've been really lucky. I've lived in great places my whole life. Minus college, I went to school at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, because I wanted to study journalism. And they had a great program, and CNN was there. I thought I wanted to be an on-air reporter.
Oh.
Yeah.
And that never materialized, or did you give up on that? Or did you change
direction?
No,
I did it. I went intern.
You did?
CNN,
oh, wow. Exciting.
I loved it. And I had like the top internship. I did another summer where I worked as a newspaper journalist in South Africa. And everybody was writing about crime and drugs and AIDS. And I knew I would have to cover that anyway. So I chose to write about sports. And my professor at the time was like, you love sports so much, Shelby. Why don't you try and pitch them an adventure story? And I really wanted to do all these adventures in South Africa, but I couldn't afford it. So I pitched the newspaper that they should let me do as many adventures from an American girl's perspective as possible in one day in Cape Town. And I got it all paid for. And it was the dream job.
Nice.
And that was actually my sophomore year, but I'll just back up. So in high school, I started writing for magazines. My mom taught human behavior and alcohol and drugs at San Diego State. And when I was young, I was a pretty decent writer. And my teacher said, hey, it was an English class. She said, hey, I'll give you extra credit if you guys enter an essay into the San Diego Union Tribune, which is our local newspaper contest.
Oh, wow.
And if you win, you get an automatic A for the year.
Wow.
So I was a soccer player, and I was also involved in this leadership program. And I wrote about my experience in this leadership program. It's a diversity leadership program. And turns out I won. My teacher was stoked. She won $100 at Nordstrom's. I got an automatic A. And I mean, I had good grades in English already, so I didn't need it, but it was pretty nice to have.
That's great, yeah.
And then the next year, I started writing for a magazine based out of Washington, D.C., for teens, by teens, about teens. And I wrote about one of my mom's students who had been date raped. And this was 1996. Wow. This was a long time ago, and it wasn't really talked about. It was a really powerful story. And then I wrote about a family member's battle with alcoholism. And kids wrote in and they said, hey, your story affected me. My boyfriend's going to go get help. And I was like, wow.
Nice, right on.
I was 16. And so I learned how far words and stories could travel at 16. So I went to journalism school at Emory. I wanted to play soccer. I wanted a cultural experience. I would have sat the bench at USC or Stanford or wherever else I was looking to go to. Emory was Division III school. I played soccer. I did journalism. And my first year of college, my journalism professor said, you guys should get an internship at your local newspaper. And I took his advice. I walked into my local newspaper, not the Union Tribune, but like there was 5 weekly newspapers in La Jolla, San Diego.
Yeah,
Pacific
the Reader.
Beach.
You go to the Reader?
Yeah. Not the Reader. It was a little nicer than the Reader. It was like the La Jolla Village News. It was a bunch of little weekly. Yep. And by my second week there, I worked really hard. I showed up. I reported on whatever they wanted me to report on. I was just so excited to see my name in print that I convinced them that we should have a surfing column and then an adventure sports column in the newspaper. And so they gave me my own adventure sports column in the newspaper. And so I've been basically doing that ever since.
Yeah, for your entire career. Did you ever have an outdoor, more traditional outdoor job?
Yeah. So in college, I did, I interned in a newspaper, and then I taught surfing at Surf Diva, which is an all-girls surf school. And that little summer camp I went to as a little girl, my first female instructor was this woman named Izzy, who started a surf school called Surf Diva. And I ended up teaching there on the side from age 16, and I taught a lesson today. So
nice.
I mean, I'm 39, so I've done it forever. So I always did that. And then, so long story short, went to college, graduated early, got a job as a journalist for the Vans Warped Tour because I was applying to like CNN, and I had a job there if I wanted it, but I didn't want to live in Atlanta any longer. There was no surf there. I was bored, and I had a boyfriend back in San Diego, which didn't help. Yeah. So I applied to the Associated Press and like all these cool jobs that were over my head, MTV, and even the LA Times, and none of them paid money. And I got an offer to go be the journalist for the Vans Warped Tour. And it's a long story of how I got this, but basically I'd met someone at Vans when I was in Atlanta who worked there. I stayed in touch. I went to trade shows. I think I was at an action sports retailer trade show. I said hi to him, called him when I graduated college, asked him if he had any jobs. And he said, actually, we're hiring a journalist for this thing called the Vans Warped Tour, but we don't really want a female. They needed a male. The reason why is because back then it was 60 days on a tour bus. It was usually guys. It was mostly men on the tour.
Yeah.
But when I graduated from
and the
college,
action sports business back then, I mean, holy cow.
Yeah,
that was the wild, wild west. That was the wild, wild west. I mean,
and I graduated from college 6 months early, and my mom said, I'll give you $2,000 towards a car, which is a lot of money, or $2,000 towards a trip, or maybe it was $1,000, but it was enough money that I was like, car, who needs a car? I went to Fiji, Australia, and New Zealand. I camped around. And so I told Vans, I was like, listen, I just camped in Fiji, Australia, New Zealand. I can handle 60 days on a tour bus. They loved me. They wanted me to have the job. So I did it. And that was my first job out of college. And I'll be honest, it kind of ruined me because no job will ever be that great. Yeah. And it was very hard. I had to figure out a story for every day about what goes on in the Vans Warped Tour, which is a punk rock concert series.
Crazy thing. Yeah, crazy.
Other things. And then I had to write a daily story about what was going on. And then I had to find a profile of either a band member, an athlete, a nonprofit member, a roadie, someone,
Right.
and it was just such good experience
Yeah, I'll bet.
interviewing people. And
Yeah.
on the bus was, Steve Van Dorn, whose dad
Nah,
started Vans, and his daughter, and they took really good care of me. And
nice.
I would go running before every stop. And, when we were in Missoula, Montana, I found a guy to take me whitewater rafting.
Oh,
But the
cool.
hardest part about the Vans Warped Tour was sending my stories. So
Oh,
after
yeah.
every tour stop, I needed to send them. There was no Wi-Fi back then, and I needed
Right.
a dial-up connection. And all the
Right.
phones were always being used by people, in
Yeah,
the
calling
in
home or doing whatever. Yeah.
no, they were just being used by like tour managers to do ticket booking and
Oh,
dealing
so you
with
got
bands.
set up the
And they
next
were
event.
really
Yeah.
scary. So for my 21-year-old self, I would just hitchhike with the most non-scary looking teenager I could find to a Kinko's or to his house, and I'd give him free Vans. And that's how I got
Nice.
my story done every day.
That's
So
very cool.
then from there, I moved to Breckenridge, Colorado, and I just wanted to learn to report about snowboarding, and I got a job running PR for Breckenridge. I think back then, I don't know. I think being a female in a mountain town and having a really good education and some
Mm-hmm.
hustle really helped. I think most
Yeah.
people just wanted to be ski bums, but I
Right.
kind of wanted to work and learn to snowboard. And then I got a job hosting a TV show called Resort Sports Network, and
Wow.
it was really fun. And then, I did some other things. I wrote for the
So you've had
newspaper
a
back there.
amazing
But yeah,
media career.
that was
Yeah.
just when I was 22. So I
Jeez.
realized after that I wanted to come back to San Diego, and I couldn't find a job in San Diego, but I got a job at PacSun as content
Mm-hmm.
writer. I
Mm-hmm.
did that for 8 months, thought it was really boring, but I gained a lot of experience. And Vans was hiring for a girls marketing manager. I probably didn't have the experience that they needed for the job, but I got the job. They liked me. I had the hustle.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
I showed up.
hustle's more than half of it, as you know. So
Yeah, so at age 23, I ran all of women's marketing and PR at Vans, which was an amazing
right
experience. I did
on.
that for
Was Steve
3
Munn there
years.
then?
Yeah, Steve
Right
was my
on.
boss.
Oh wow, cool. Yeah, I worked with
So
him at
then,
Jansport. Yeah.
yeah, so then I moved over to international sales and marketing and worked directly for Steve and for our president. And
Cool.
my territory was all of Latin America, Canada, Australia, and Asia. And that was a really good experience because I wanted to go to business school back then, but I thought it was a waste of money. And I got a business education I couldn't have paid, you know,
Yeah. Right.
any school to give me. And you
Right.
know the industry really
Well,
well.
and you got boots on the ground education. It's completely different than business school. I
Yeah,
mean, you
I like
really
wished
got to
I had
do it.
some, but yeah, I got to do it. And
Yeah,
Vans was an
totally
incredible
different.
company. It was growing fast.
Yeah.
When I
Yeah.
started, people weren't that psyched on wearing Vans. We were
Right.
seeding them to celebrities, and Vans had started this program where they were really trying to give musicians free shoes,
Mm-hmm.
celebrities free shoes, and then they were designing a fashion line, which everybody thought was so dumb. But you know what? It worked. And
It
Vans
took off.
is
Right.
crushing it.
Right.
And I was part of that movement, and it was just an exciting time. And then in 2009, I don't know why I left Vans, but I it was the
Needed
height of the
something different.
recession.
Yeah.
I
Something.
wanted something different,
Mm-hmm.
and I really wanted to go back into journalism. I felt like I was wasting my education, but I also didn't really see anybody who looked like me in a position that I wanted at Vans. And
Mm-hmm.
I kept getting these other offers to do other things, and I
Yeah.
couldn't do it all. So I quit at the height of the recession. I'd gone through a bit of a depression, and it took 2 years to quit. And the reason it took so long to quit is Vans was an amazing company. They were
Yeah,
so good to
that was the
me.
heyday, right? It's like when I was at Eagle Creek. I mean, if you're there at the right time and some of these
I
companies and it's
mean,
booming,
they're still in the
man,
heyday. I
so
mean,
much fun.
totally. And they're
Yeah,
still there.
yeah,
I'd say Vans is even more in the heyday than when I was there. But it was a really good experience where we all had our boots on the ground and really cared about the company. I don't know what it's like now. I imagine it's equally amazing. But yeah, it was a good experience. So I
yeah.
left to
That's
go
very
be a
cool.
journalist, and I started freelancing for Outside Magazine. And then there was a woman who ran a website called shopeatsurf.com. And she was a reporter for the Orange County Register, and she ran the business section with her husband. And they were really smart and doing really great stories. And I met her at a party, and I said, "Hey, I'd love to work with you. I have journalism experience. I have tons of business experience in this industry." And she hired me right there, and I started
Great.
writing for her. And she had never hired anybody else. So it was like a little work in progress. She wasn't used to managing people. I wasn't really used to freelancing for a business site. And she taught me a lot about business. And
Right.
my job was to interview the CEOs and executives of every major outdoor and action sports brand. And that was
very cool.
pretty invaluable. So I went to all the trade shows.
Yeah.
I'd go up, take their pictures. I met people.
Yeah.
And that was scary, just going up to random people and asking who they are and taking their photo and writing the name down. But it was a good experience. And on the side, I just, for the last couple of years after that, I would write for Shop Eat Surf. I consulted with Nike, who needed a woman to write about fitness, triathlons, soccer, and the outdoor world. And someone had recommended me.
Mm-hmm.
I worked for Prana as a copywriter.
Wow. So
I went in-house at Body Glove. And so I did all these things. And then in 2016, I started the podcast.
And the podcast has been fun. So let's talk about some of those stories for a minute, though. Are there any story or person or cause that has moved you like none of the others? Something that just struck a chord and moved you, either motivated you or just tugged at your heartstrings?
I mean, gosh, there's been a million, but I think for me, it was always hearing stories of people who took the road less traveled and went for it, whatever it was, and made it happen. Like, I love those stories. And I remember I had to write 25 pitches to Outside Magazine to get this one assignment before they accepted it. But just interviewing people who were taking the road less travel and going for it, that kind of gave me the courage to quit my job. There's so many others though.
How about something you've written that just made you laugh out loud right from the get-go? Just cracked you up?
That would probably be too inappropriate to talk about here.
You can talk about whatever you want.
On the side, I also taught surfing so I taught at Surf Diva, and they have a camp in Costa Rica. So from 2009 to 2016, I led a pretty glorious life, writing for whoever, teaching surfing in Costa Rica. But I mean, when you're with a group of women who are just quit their job or divorced their husband and they're going to Costa Rica to surf, it's comedy.
I can imagine. Is there anybody out there that's still left on your list? Someone you just want to talk to or interview that you haven't?
I mean, I've always wanted to take Oprah surfing, and then
that's a good one.
My recipe for a good interview is you take them surfing, and then you do the interview. And I feel like those interviews are the best interviews ever.
Yeah,
Opes would be awesome. I'm really interested in Tulsi Gabbard right now because she's running for president and she's a big surfer. I've met her in passing, but haven't really talked to her. I think she's interesting. Obviously, I'm interested in Kelly Slater because he's such a fascinating surfer.
Right. Plus all the other stuff he's done too.
There's some scientists and astronauts that I'd be interested in interviewing, only because I think when you leave the Earth, you have such a different perspective on our world that someone like me could ever have.
Yeah, no, that's got to be life-changing when you go back and see the little orb there, how beautiful it is. And it's just like, man, so lucky. So where do you see the future of outdoor journalism headed? I mean, you've had a long experience through its beginning and now through today with the podcast.
Podcasting was the answer. My stories were getting a little smaller in the magazines, and I was getting a little frustrated with how they were getting edited, and I was also bored. I just wanted... I've always liked the interview part of the story the best. Yeah. People would tell me the most amazing things, and friends would always ask me what they said and their advice, and they'd ask me for advice, and I was like, screw it. I'm going to start a podcast with these interviews to help others feel less stuck so they can go achieve whatever wild idea they have.
Yep. And how did you come up with the idea for that? Just that? Did you have an inspiration one day, or had you been...
Yeah, I mean, I'd been toying around with the idea of a podcast for a while. I really liked Tim Ferriss's podcast, but I wished he was a girl, and I wish he talked more about adventure. I just not that excited about tech. I think it's super interesting, but my world and my genre and lens through which I view the world is through the outdoors and through nature and through sports like surfing and hiking. And I've always been fascinated by adventures. And so I wanted a podcast that showed how people did a wild idea and made it happen. And honestly, I came up with the actual name when it finally wasn't a name that wasn't taken when I was on a hike in the Central Coast.
Oh, cool. And who was your first interview?
My first interview was actually a woman who skateboarded down the 405. Her name is Cindy Whitehead, and she's a really big leader in the skateboard movement, and she's just a force of nature. She's awesome. And then I also interviewed a woman named Steph Jagger, who, if you're involved with Eagle Creek, you might know of an organization called Outdoor Outreach. They teach
Yeah.
at-risk kids to surf and climb. So I've been on the board and involved with outdoor outreach almost since they've started.
Oh, cool.
And it's actually the founder's wife, Chris Rucker's wife, Steph Jagger. I met her a long time ago, and she'd quit her job and tried to ski the most vertical feet in a year.
Wow.
And set a Guinness Book of World Records. Now, Guinness didn't recognize her record, but along the way, she gained all this confidence, met her husband. And so she was my first podcast guest. And
Cool.
her whole thing is that starting lines are more important than finish lines. And I think that's so important when you talk about adventure.
That's huge. Yeah, I had Christy Foe on the podcast I worked with her at Eagle Creek. She started outdoor outreach up in Oregon.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. She was on the show a few episodes.
Funny.
Yeah, you probably know Christy. Yeah, I think she was in the finance department down at Eagle Creek, accounting or something. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, she did. I guess she was involved with outdoor outreach down there, and then is from Oregon, moved up to Oregon, decided that they needed one of these things, and with a friend and some inspiration, started her own chapter, and they're going strong. So it's great.
Yeah, she's great. We ran together a little bit. She's
cool.
a really cool person.
Yeah, she's awesome. Yeah. So, what are a couple of accomplishments you're most proud of all those things that you've done? I mean, you've done some pretty amazing things. Launching the podcast is huge.
Well, thank you. I think I'm most proud of just making decisions that haven't always been popular, but that I thought I should do.
Mm-hmm.
So quitting my
I've
job.
done that a lot.
Yeah. Quitting my job to go teach surfing in Costa Rica ended up being a really good decision. I moved to New Zealand with a guy I'd only dated for 3 months in 2013. And, we're still together and engaged today. I don't even know if we'll ever get married, but, he's my life partner.
There you go. Congratulations.
At least for now. Thank you. And, starting the podcast was a really big one for me because the way I wanted to do my podcast was I wanted to make it a business and I wanted to make it profitable, but I really wanted to inspire a lot of people. Like I wanted thousands of people to listen from the get-go. And I don't know, I took a course on entrepreneurship before I launched and I treated it like a business. And I think that was really helpful.
Yeah.
So I'm really proud about the decisions I made with the podcast and some of the guests I've interviewed. And I think the one that I'm most excited about is this year I expanded the definition of what adventure is. I think that the definition of adventure in the outdoor industry talks about it a lot is a little narrow. Like we think of adventure as like a guy climbing Everest, but it's a picnic at the beach. It can be a barbecue.
Yep.
And so I interviewed a woman who was a Holocaust survivor and like the adventure of just surviving life
Can't imagine.
In a situation like that was impactful. And she gave me a lot of advice and that was the most important. And
that's huge.
It's icing on the cake when people write in and say the podcast has affected them. But really, like, I just love talking to people.
Yeah, that's kind of what I didn't realize. If you followed the Tim Ferriss, he talks about, if you're going to start a podcast, just do 3 or 4 episodes. Don't buy a bunch of equipment. Make sure you like it. And I did this. That's what I did, right? I had the equipment when I was lucky from my photography stuff, and just did a few episodes with buddies. And same, I just had a blast interviewing people, talking to them, asking questions, listening to their stories. That's the most fun part of it. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. I mean, my mom is one of those people that talk to everybody at the grocery store, and the baggers at Vaughn's came over for my birthday party and we're friends. And so that's just sort of a gene in my family.
Yeah.
But I don't get sick of it.
No, it's super fun, and the stories are all different, and the inspirations that people have are all different. It's a very, very fun part of it. So, who are some of the mentors that have helped you along the way, either in the podcast or in life, journalism?
I mean, my mom has been a pretty big mentor to me. I think the woman who started Surf Diva, Izzy Tihani, has been an incredible mentor to me. I have a sister who just started a business. She started a boxing studio chain called Box Union. And it's this beautiful boutique, kind of like Soul Cycle where you go on, but it's not a bike. Yeah. It's a bag, and it's really inspirational and uplifting, and there's a big community component of it. So I come from this strong family of women, and they've all been really inspirational to me. And, the woman who started Surf Diva lived with us at one point for a couple of years, and she's like my sister too. So I've been lucky. Cool. I really liked working at Vans. I met a lot of mentors there. Steve Munn was a great mentor. There's a guy named Steve Murray, who's now the head of VF Outdoor. who's just kind of a no bullshit guy, and he's so good at business, and he was helpful. My direct boss is a guy named Joe Birnbaum, who he actually moved to Miami to run a Latin American distributorship, and he was just really patient with me when I was young. And I think the guy who leads the Helmet Vans now, Doug Palladini, was also a good mentor. And then that female journalist I worked for, Tiffany Montgomery, who runs Shop Eat Surf, she was a really powerful mentor for me. I mean, she also didn't let me get away with stuff. So like when I misspelled someone's name, she let me know about it.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think that's what a good mentor does.
Yeah. Calls you on your stuff. Yeah. Make sure you don't make mistakes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you always had that entrepreneurial spirit? Your sister started the business. You've got the podcast. Where's that?
I mean, we all kind of started at the same time. My mom, I was starting my podcast. Like a couple months later, my sister's like, I'm going to quit my job. And so I mean, nobody in my family was in entrepreneurship. My mom was a teacher. My stepdad, my mom remarried this great guy. He was an athletic director at colleges and fundraiser for nonprofits. My real father was a dentist, so he was pretty entrepreneurial. My oldest sister actually has a business right now, and she became entrepreneurial as well. But I don't think it started until like 5-6 years ago that we all just caught the bug.
That's interesting. Yeah. You guys didn't sell Kool-Aid as kids on the street?
I guess I did. I mean,
we all did that.
Things, but no, I kind of always thought I would be a journalist and just work for someone.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd have to run my own business. And I'll be honest, like there's a lot of parts of running my own business that I don't like. They're hard.
Yeah. It's not all fun and games. Yeah.
No.
The backside, the back end of it is the accounting and all that kind of stuff.
And just like where your money's going to come from. I do my podcast, so it's really well edited. The sound's really well produced. And so I have to pay a producer. So like, where is that money going to come from to pay her and my bills? That's tricky.
Yeah, it all adds up. And all the other little, tools and add-ons that you have to subscribe to, it does add up pretty quickly. So in addition to surfing, what other outdoor activities do you still participate in? You get out and hike and bike and...
I hike, I run. I used to bike. I used to do triathlons, but my bike got stolen. I think it's really sketchy biking in San Diego on the road.
Yeah, a lot of traffic.
A lot of traffic, lots of accidents. I'm very interested in mountain biking. So I run, I surf, I hike, I do yoga. Surfing really, I live on the beach right now, so that's my main activity. I stand up paddle. Cool. I've done, caving and rappelling, and I've gotten into rock climbing recently, but lately it's really just been at the bouldering gym. Although I took a class with REI, an all-women's climbing class outside, and it was really exciting.
You got to come up here to Bishop. There's a lot of bouldering up here, man. In the wintertime, it is the place to be.
Amazing runners. I interviewed a girl who moved there, Katja Corbett. She's a big ultra runner.
Yeah, tons of those up here. Yeah, they run forever in the wintertime. It's amazing. So do you have any suggestions or advice for folks wanting to get into the outdoor biz or maybe grow their career if they're already in the biz?
Yeah, I just gave a talk at this place called Creative Mornings, and I can send you that link so you can put it in the show notes.
Yeah, perfect.
I mean, I think, and it goes through like how to turn your wonder, your idea, your wild idea into action. And those are the tips that I give. But I think the biggest thing is if you want to have a career in the outdoor business, you got to go work for someone or intern somewhere. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest thing is like, just start. And that's what all adventurers say. Like I'd say sailors say it best. There's sailors who untie the dock lines and there's sailors who just stay on the dock and fix their boat. I mean, you want to be the guy who just unties the dock lines and goes.
Yeah. You got to get out there. Yeah. A lot of people say that. Just start. Yeah.
Get outside in nature as often as you can. I've met a lot of career contacts in the water surfing. Mm-hmm, I taught the head of NPR how to surf once. Oh, cool. So I think if you can get a job in the outdoor industry, ask questions, take people to coffee. A lot of people ask me if they can like get free podcast advice and go to coffee. And unfortunately, like I can't drink that much coffee or take that many phone calls anymore. Right. So I think it's really smart. Like you're starting a coaching business where you charge for that. But I think a lot of people are willing to talk to you, but you also have to be willing to do the work. So if you're interested in getting into the outdoor industry, be ready to work your face off and, not expect a huge return right away. But if you're in it for the right reasons and for the long haul, I mean, it's a pretty great industry to work in.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, no, that's good advice. A lot of people have said a similar thing. We're I think we don't come across as very open a lot, but we are open and welcoming, and we'll talk to anybody that wants to ask questions.
Oh, I think, yeah. I mean, compared to like people complain about Outdoor Retailer, I think it's the most open, beautiful show I've ever been to. Like compared to any other show I've been to, you can go talk to the VP of North Face if you're there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the best thing to do is if you want to get into the business, figure out a way to get to the Outdoor Retailer show or go to the Action Sports Retailer show, or I think it's now called there's now just Surf Expo.
The winter.
Go to
winter
the snow show, go to SIA. But I think if you want to get into straight outdoor business, go to Outdoor Retailer, try to sign up on Basecamp. Is it Basecamp Outdoors on Facebook? There's a great group.
Yep, right.
There's Malachi.com.
Yep.
There's readshopEatSurf.com. That's a really great website.
That's a good one. Yeah, I'll have a link to that one too in the show notes. Yeah.
And just all you have to do is like show up and talk to someone on a chairlift that happens to be the CEO of a company.
That's it.
Talk to them about skiing, and you never know.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's good advice. Yeah.
And,
do you go ahead?
You can also write. I would say the other thing is just pitch. You need to learn how to pitch. I think if you're going to do something interesting and it's not already there, you're going to have to create it yourself. And you have to pitch people, but pitch them the right way and offer them something that not only you just want to do, but that they need.
You got to provide value. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you got to provide value. You can't just be like, I want to be I would love to be a pro surfer, but I'm just not that good. Not even close. So I'm not going to make money as that. And, I'd love to just be a podcaster, but I had to create something that a brand would want.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Add value and learn how to pitch it to other folks. That's good advice. What are your daily routines to keep your sanity? You meditate? You must surf every day, I'm sure.
I do try to meditate. I have this thing where I have a little bit of anxiety and I'm hard on myself. And so meditation is really important. I'm not the most amazing at it. I do like 5 minutes and I try to send gratitude toward whatever is hard in my life right now, whether it's it's usually not a person because I'm pretty good with people, but like if it's a situation I'm working on that I can't figure out, or if I'm being hard on myself, I try to send that part of myself some love and some gratitude.
That's good.
I run a lot. I try to run. I was running every day, like at least a 5K to 8 miles. And now I'm because I kept getting injured, I'm trying to do every 3 days.
There you go.
Or just running every other day. And then I surf pretty much whenever there's waves. We live right on the beach, so we're really lucky. And then I go on walks, I hike, I do yoga.
Cool.
And I try to do whatever's hard first. So my morning is kind of my time that I get the most done.
Do you have a morning routine that you follow regularly, or is it hit and miss?
No, it's pretty much like whatever's hard, I knock out first. I drink some tea, then I probably drink coffee, and then I meditate for a little bit. And I try to do that before I have coffee. And then I go, if I feel like I need to work out and clear my brain, then I do that first. If I feel like I have a deadline that I need to meet, I do that first. So I do I call it eat the frog.
Nice.
So do the hard thing first.
Yeah.
Then the rest of your day is free. I try to only schedule meetings between like 1 to 4 p.m. because that's when my brain just sort of is hot and I can take a meeting, but I'm not going to do very creative work. I think when you're creative, you have to really be careful with your time.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
I've had since 2009 of being freelance and on my own, so I've learned how I work and what times I work best at. I'm not a night person, so I also turn off all electronics at 8 p.m. except for if I'm watching like Netflix and it's comedy.
Yeah.
And comedy, humor is a big part of my life. Like we are in this world where everybody's taking everything so seriously, and I think that's the other thing is like you got to learn to laugh at yourself.
Yeah, laugh at others. Exactly, yourself and others. I mean,
yeah, you have to be careful about that, but yes.
Yeah, they don't always have to know you're laughing at them, but
agree.
How about some favorite books or favorite podcasts?
Well, like you, I love Tim Ferriss's podcast. I think it's great. I actually just listened to this one with Kimmy Culp, and I'm forgetting the name of it, but she has a really unique podcast where she donates $2,000 towards an organization for every podcast she records.
Oh, wow.
And
that's cool.
I have to get you the name.
Send me the name. We'll link to that in the show notes.
For books, I love the book The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield.
Oh, that's great. Yep.
I just think that if you're creative and you want to go start something, that's a good one.
It's great book.
I love Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. I just think she's an interesting person. Um, I love this book. If you're interested in the ocean or water or breathing, there's an author named James Nestor who wrote Deep, and it's about freediving and what's underneath us. I think that's a fantastic book.
Yeah, I've heard about that guy. Didn't he have something on TV or on
He has
Netflix
like
or
a
something?
New Yorker
YouTube?
thing as well.
Something. Yeah.
Kimmy Culp's podcast is called All the Wiser
Okay,
podcast,
cool. All the wiser.
and it's a pretty good one. I have a whole list of my books that I'm putting up on my website, so I'll have that linked pretty soon.
Cool.
But there's a bunch of books that, I like Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. It's an old book, but I tend to be one of those people who can kind of sweat the small stuff sometimes. And it's a good book to just put it in perspective and let things go. And I've been really lucky. Like, I have a lot of people sending me new books, and it's exciting right now. I'm getting to read some wonderful stories. But I think, the classics like Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and then The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield is just helpful when you're launching a career. And
yeah, that's a good one. Like you say, though. Yeah, like you say, especially if you're creative too, because it really isn't he he's the guy. Was it him or it was some other guy who said that you should steal like Picasso, or I forget what that saying is. I'll have to look that up and I'll put that in the show notes. But it was pretty hilarious about that.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on that. Yeah, maybe I'll delete this out. Maybe
I'll
not.
Google it.
There you go. How about your favorite piece of outdoor gear under $100?
It's probably not going to be that popular, but the truth is I have a $99 foam surfboard from Costco.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's so fun. Whenever I'm injured, and like I've injured my foot a couple times in my life where I've broken a bone, and it's too hard to stand on a hard surfboard. And so I get the foamy out, but I realized that the foamy is fun in all conditions, and it's such a good vehicle to teach other people how to surf and share the joy. And I think there's nothing better than sharing your love of the outdoors with someone else.
That's cool. That's good. We'll link to that in the show notes too. Costco, there you go, folks. Head on down to your local Costco.
$99 surfboard, not popular in the surf industry. I realized that people are going to be bummed. I'd say the best thing I got, I think it was under $99 at REI. I really love my onesie, like it's like a bathing suit, but it covers your full arms, from this brand called the SEA, SEEA. It's a great piece of gear if you're a female and you're in the water and you don't want a wedgie when you surf. You don't want to show your boobs to the world. It just stays on. It looks cute. So that's been kind of a game changer when I surf. Cool.
We'll link to that too. Everybody can find that too. And if people want to reach out to you, how can they find you? What's the best way?
I think the best way is through my website, shelbystanger.com, which is about to get a makeover. It might not be done by September when this comes out. So just stay with me. Or you can check out you can check out my podcast with REI called Wild Ideas Worth Living. And I'm on Instagram at Shelby Stanger, at Wild Ideas Worth Living. I also do a podcast for Lufthansa, which is called Life Changing Places. It's about travel, and that's a really good one to check out.
Cool. And we'll link to all that in the show notes.
I might be launching one more as well, but I'll be able to tell you about that later.
Nice. Well, if that happens before September, let me know. We'll link to that too.
Well, Rick, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much. I think what you're doing is great. I think if people want to get into the outdoor industry, obviously listening to this podcast is a big step, and then just talking to people.
Yep. You said it best. Just get out there and talk to people. Yep. Well, thanks for being on the show. I look forward to catching up at OR one day.
That sounds
Or in San Diego. I go down there all the time. My dad still lives down there, so.
Perfect.
We'll grab coffee.
I love it.
Awesome. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Rick.
All right. Take it easy. If you want more of the Outdoor Biz podcast, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to go to the outdoorbizpodcast.com where you find all the episodes, show notes, and much, much more. Until next time, be sure to make time to get outside.